Hi, friends, and welcome. As you can no doubt tell by seeing my breath, it's a bit frosty here on my bend in the river. There's a few snowflakes in the air. But on today's program, we're actually headed over the rainbow. We're going all the way to Oz. Or we're going over Interstate 80 and down 35 to Kansas. Still, Kansas is one of those legendary places if you're an archery whitetail hunter that you dream of going. At least I certainly have. And Miss T and I are finally getting the chance. We're going down to Fredonia, Kansas in the southeast corner where we're going to hunt with Ed Barton of B&C Kansas. And I got to tell you, one of the things that makes this possible is Kansas has finally liberalized their tag issue. You know, it used to be hard to draw there. Now just about everybody that wants to archery deer hunt can go. And I'm really looking forward to taking a crack at one of those Sunflower State bucks. Hey, I'm your host, Kyle Randall. This is my Wilderness Journal, and we're headed for Oz to do a little archery deer hunting right now. The yellow brick road was a little whiter than I remember it in the movie.
I have no idea.
That's a pretty good hailstorm there.
So it was nice to finally find Kansas, a little sunshine, and Ed Barton's place. And once we got there, I finally got a chance to sit down and talk to Ed.
B&C Kansas, I have been hearing about this place for years. I had to come. And I appreciate you having us down. It's got to be just about the right time.
Yep, it is. Rut's kicking in.
First full week in November. Honest to goodness, we've been hearing about this place up in Michigan. There's guys come down here. I got to tell you, though, I'm woefully ignorant of what you have. I know you have big white-tailed deer. That's what we're here for, archery hunting.
Yep.
Specifically, the rut here in Kansas. And I want to say, before I forget, Kansas finally adjusted the way that the tags are allocated. So you pretty much can get a tag if you're applying for archery.
Yes, you're pretty much guaranteed.
Yeah, that used to be, it was hard to get a tag. Yep. But now, if you ever wanted to hunt Kansas, this is your shot.
Yep, it is. They're guaranteed a tag, basically, and we do have leftovers.
Right, and you can hunt with a crossbow here, too, now.
Yep, under certain circumstances, your age and handicap, you can.
Right. Anybody over 55, though,
right,
which is fastly, real quick on the threshold for me. But, I mean, there's a lot of folks up in Michigan looking for some place to hunt with that crossbow for archery, but you don't just do archery. What else do you, you do, obviously, archery deer hunts.
Yes, we offer, other than the archery, rifle hunts, muzzleloader hunts. We do turkey hunts in the spring, and we do predator hunts after the deer hunts, usually after the first of the year.
And that predator hunting is getting to be more and more popular, and I know the guys and gals up in the upper Midwest are into the turkey thing. So
yeah.
Now I gotta ask you, because again, I don't know how long you've been doing this, Ed.
10 years.
You've been at it for 10 years.
Been at it for 10 years.
You've got a beautiful place here. I mean, it's obviously you're setting about this the right way. How much ground are you hunting?
Right now, 15,000 acres.
You hunt primarily ladder stands, and how many stands you have out right now?
Well, ladder stands, I've probably got 60.
60 of
Yeah.
And you're hunting over baits as well as some trail crossings, different kind of situations, right?
We utilize the feeders and crop fields, of course, and then scrape lines.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I tell you what, we've been on the road for a day and a half trying to get down here, been dying. I don't mean to be rude, but I want to jump in the shower and get cleaned up and get headed to the trees.
Let's go.
All right? It's great to meet you. We're looking forward to it.
And within the hour, we were indeed in the trees on a great-looking spot where two creek bottoms came together and formed a bottleneck that ran along the side of a giant CRP field. This was exactly the kind of place I'd expect to find deer. So it came as no surprise that by 4 o'clock we already had a couple of does moving past our stand. Unfortunately, for the first hour anyway, that's all we saw was a couple of does. And then, just as the sun started to touch the hill out in front of us, I saw movement up on the ridgetop. I got to look and there was something running. It was turkeys. Now, seeing a bunch of turkeys isn't a bad thing if you have a turkey tag, which I didn't, unfortunately. Still, there were at least a couple of turkeys, and wait a minute, I wasn't the only one watching the turkeys. There was a little yearling slowly working his way past the stand and up the tractor path. He didn't really appear to be in much of a hurry. In fact, he was just kind of wandering, so I figured, there can't be too many other deer around, certainly no big old bucks. And as it turned out, for the next hour, he was the only other deer we saw. And then, just as the light started to fade, I noticed another deer moving through the brush behind us. It finally cleared a tree, and I could see it was a buck, kind of. Here was a little spike, I mean just a little guy, a 3-inch antler on one side, a busted off horn on the other. This was going to be a big old boy someday, but it was going to be a lot of days before that happened. And then, just as it was near totally dark, I watched a doe jump the fence, followed by a fawn. They were working their way through in front of us. Unfortunately, there was no big buck following her either. And the following morning, as it got light out, I heard a noise. I looked, and there was a whole bunch of turkeys roosted right behind us. I mean, right behind us. I looked over below the turkeys, and here was a deer. I thought, man, these turkeys start flying down, and these deer are going to booger for sure. But what do? You sit there and watch. You hope the deer work their way in before the turkeys start moving out. And at first, it looked like that might actually happen. This little forked horn was working his way in. He was going to pass right up underneath our tree, in fact, if he kept going the way he was going. And the turkeys, for the moment at least, were staying on the roost. They were kind of watching him just like we were. That little guy worked right up underneath us. I mean, right up under our tree and then back out in front of us. He certainly wasn't a shooter, but him being there did tell me a couple of things. It told me, first, the turkeys were going to sit still for a little bit, and second, at least our scent control was working. I also noticed that he had a little drop tine, a tiny little point coming off his right antler. I remember telling Ed later, I almost shot him because I've never taken a drop tine buck, and he didn't see the humor in it. No. Not long after that little guy slid past us, the turkeys decided they'd had enough. They started bailing out of that tree. And if you've never been around a bunch of turkeys flying down, it's a god-awful noise. I figured, there's no way with all this racket we're going to see any more deer. And we didn't. At least not until well after 9 o'clock when I noticed some movement coming down on the other side of the fence. And it was a buck. A more mature buck. A 2, maybe 3-year-old. He didn't have much for antlers, really, but he had a decent-sized body. He was obviously out cruising, looking for a girlfriend. And when he worked his way around behind us and got to the rub I'd placed some scent on earlier, let's say I'm pretty sure it annoyed him, because he spent the next 10 full minutes trying to beat and rub and wear that smell off of that tree. If you're one of those hunters that doubt the usefulness of scent when you're deer hunting, well then please watch this. Because I'm pretty sure this buck would have chewed that tree down like a beaver to get rid of that smell if he could have. I have to admit, friends, I almost caught myself laughing as I watched this. He'd rub and then sniff it and rub some more. He was giving her the old college try, but he just couldn't get rid of that smell, and it was truly ticking him off. That's the reason you use scent. It'll draw on a buck and hold his attention. If I'd have wanted to harvest this animal, I would have had all the time in the world to shoot him. That's the point. You set a trap, you lure a deer into it, and then, if it's the right deer, you close the deal. And if it's not the right deer, well, it's still pretty good entertainment. The rut's coming. It's got to be real soon. That's what that buck was doing, is cruising looking for fresh does. We watched as that buck worked his way up out of the creek bottom and over the next hill, and we stuck with it for another hour and a half until it got so warm, in fact, we finally decided, we better head in, take another shower, and get some lunch.
Try as he might, that buck just couldn't get rid of the intruder scent I placed on his rub. You know, that's one of the things I love about this time of the season. Scents and rattling and grunting work really well. This is their time, you know, the pre-rut in the rut. And I'd seen a lot of deer. We'd pulled in quite a few. We just hadn't seen the deer. And when we got back to the lodge, we got a little more bad news. We found out the weather guesser was forecasting even higher winds and temperatures for the next 3 days. And then it was supposed to thunderstorm and rain. There was a possibility of tornado. So, yeah, we needed something to break something to go our way, and we needed it pretty quick.
We were back on stand that afternoon, and just as the sun was setting, a doe was working her way across in front of us. She jumped the fence and started coming up along the edge. This was obviously an older, mature doe, and I thought for sure there'd be a buck following her. And there was. Kinda. A button buck yearling was working his way along behind her, probably her fawn. They did pass right in front of our stand at less than 15 yards, but unfortunately, they were the only deer we saw that night. And the next morning, we saw the exact same doe and fawn going back the other way, followed by a forked horn that seemed to lack the nerve to try jumping over the fence, so yeah, after a couple of false starts, he just swallowed his pride and went under. We were seeing deer, but not a lot of deer, and it was getting warmer faster every day, so I figured, you know, we got to try something to change our luck. I started grunting, and within 10 minutes, I saw a buck coming over the hill down toward us. I was pretty certain I knew what buck this was. This was the deer that was right behind me just a day ago working a rub. He still wasn't a shooter, but it was fun to see him come over the hill to the grunt call, and hey, he might not be alone. That's the way the rut is. 1 minute there's nothing, and the next there can be deer everywhere, especially when you're grunting and rattling. So I reached up and grabbed my bow anyway, just in case. In this business especially, I've learned, fortune favors those who are prepared. Well, unfortunately, I didn't see any other bucks coming to the grunting. Still, it was a great pleasure to me personally to be able to pull this buck in to fool him again. This is exactly what I mean by aggressive hunting. To manipulate a deer's environment to fool his ears or his nose or his eyes and to make him do what you want him to do to give yourself a chance to harvest. Friends, this is the most exciting kind of hunting I do all year. We watched as the buck worked his way on by, and then I hung my bow. There wasn't anything else coming, at least not that I could see. And then about 20 minutes later, I heard a noise right underneath us. I looked down and, well, that isn't exactly what we were trying to grunt up. I whispered to T, hey, there goes your new coat. It's just walking away. I squeaked a little and stopped him for a moment, and then T gave me the sign that she had intended to get a floor-length model, and yeah, this probably wouldn't do it.
T was fairly certain that that raccoon wasn't nearly big enough to make her a new coat, so yeah, we let it slide. Still, it's great to see game, any kind of critter when you're on stand. It keeps you focused, it keeps you paying attention, and it's really part of the experience. It's all part of archery deer hunting. We did, however, have that problem, that nagging temperature. It was going up and up. The winds were coming up with it, and like I told you earlier, the forecast was for it to get worse and worse and then end up in storms. I needed to do something. We needed to change the game right now.
It wasn't even 8 o'clock yet, and it was already starting to heat up.
It's getting warm fast. 7:45. I'm going to try rattling grunting one more time.
I decided to give grunting and rattling one more try before we got down and headed in for lunch. And just as I was finishing my first sequence, I noticed a buck slowly working his way across the top of the hill in front of us. He was coming, but he was coming real cautious. And then, just as he passed to our right where I couldn't see him anymore, I looked over and there was another buck, a bigger buck, coming right down the tractor path. This was definitely a mature deer. He had that slow swaggering step as he came down the tractor path. Obviously he wasn't afraid of other bucks. He was marching right straight in. And I figured if he'd come about 20 more yards, and then he pulled up short. There was something on the ground, something he was staring at that was really bugging him. The wind was from him to us. It certainly wasn't us. He wasn't looking up. He was looking right straight down in the dirt. I just couldn't figure out what it was that was bothering him. I sat there, bow in hand, trying to make up my mind, was I going to take a run at this deer? Even if he didn't walk across and give me a broadside shot, would I take him? These are the things that run through your mind if you're me, and it was obvious this buck was getting more and more nervous. There was something on the ground, I don't know what it was, but it was starting to really get to him, and at any moment he could wheel and be gone, and with him would go my chance. I needed to make a decision, and I needed to do it right now. He's down, he's in the grass. He's down right there. I watched him tip over. Boom. He caught something. I don't know what it was up there. He backed up. I had to take him from a front angle. It was a hard angle. Thank you, Lord. And thank you, Ed Barton, BNC, Kansas. Oh, we have been seeing does and small bucks. That's not a huge buck, but it's a nice buck. We grunted, we rattled it. Nothing, and all of a sudden, boom, there he is. Oh, man, he's certainly got bigger bucks here, but you know what? That one right there, that's perfect. You know why? Because he's ours. And he's down right there. Oh, good deal. I don't think we have too much trouble finding this one. There. And those are antlers in the grass right there. Sure he's all done. We watch him go down here. Yeah. Let me get down here. There's kind of a steep hill. Look at that. That's a little Kansas magic right there. That is a gorgeous 3-year-old 8-point. I see he's busted off a little there. You know, that's certainly not the biggest buck here at BNC by a long stretch, but they are forecasting even hotter temperatures. It's already up to 70. The wind is blowing 30 miles an hour. They're talking about possible tornadoes tomorrow. Folks, you just don't look a gift buck like that in the face. You just, at least I don't. That is really, really a nice buck. I'll tell you, I can't thank Ed and everybody at BNC Kansas enough. I really, really appreciate the chance. We come down here to hunt the pre-rut, and that's exactly what we did. We actually rattled and grunted this guy up. I was shocked. As warm as it is, there just hasn't been a lot of big buck movement. We've been seeing tons of deer. We saw deer at every set. But when this guy come trotting down that tractor path, coming to me grunting and rattling, I just couldn't say no, not knowing what the weather's going to do tomorrow. And then Sunday, our last day, it's supposed to rain all day. So we thank Ed again. Certainly thank you, Miss T, for all the hard work, getting up early. Folks,
Miss T don't like getting up early, and she has every day this week, done a great job, and this has been the result of all that hard work. And we certainly thank the Lord for a great, great critter. Man, it's getting hot already. I'm sitting here sweating. Whew. Want to go to my house? It's dinner time. Look at that. That, friends, is what I call getting aggressive on a hunt. Yeah, nothing's happening, so I tried everything I could think of. Obviously, the scents, the grunting, the rattling. Many of us do that grunting a little too early in the season. We might actually hurt ourselves, but during the pre-rut leading into the rut, it is absolutely the right thing to do. And remember, there are bucks cruising all the time, so every hour you could potentially be working a different deer. That's one of the things that I truly enjoy about archery deer hunting this time of the year. It is interactive. It's something that's not just sitting there. And believe me when I tell you, those kind of hunts, the hunts where I actually fool a big old buck by the things that I do, are absolutely the most memorable. I will indeed remember that hunt for years to come. Not just because of the great buck that we were fortunate to get, but because of the way we went about collecting them. That interactive, aggressive hunting, it really is my favorite. Hey, I want to thank all of the great guys that we shared camp with down at Kansas. I certainly want to thank my lovely bride, Miss T, for all the hard work. And I truly do need to thank again Mr. Ed Barton of BNC Kansas Hunts. We had such a great time. He is such a great host. And if you'd like to get a hold of him, his name and contact information will be at the end of the show as always. You know, we truly hope to see some of you down there. We're definitely going back, take another run at those Sunflower State bucks, and I hope we run into you. And if we do, you know, we'll stop and share a cup and a fire, tell a few deer stories. And if we don't see you down there, friends, well, at the very least, we hope to see each and every one of you right back here, where we'll share another adventure from my Wilderness Journal.
Thanks again, Ed, and everybody down at BNC Kansas.